I knew once it happened come Sunday night that when Sting would make his WWE debut at Survivor Series 2014, you were going to have that certain set of wrestling fans, that certain set of smartasses that were going to trot out that tired and oh so ridiculously pathetic logic of, oh, when Sting's in TNA, that's stupid. But when Sting's in WWE, yeah, it's awesome. This is a double standard. This is hypocrisy. And a whole bunch of other bullshit. It's a pathetic attempt to try and spin an anti-TNA narrative when let's be as realistic as we possibly can. TNA, in the grand scheme of things, is relatively irrelevant. Sorry, TNA fans, it is the truth. And let me make this perfectly clear. Sting in WWE is much different and a whole lot better than Sting in TNA, period. And to try and compare the two, and to try and sit there and artificially prop up TNA and say some stupid bullshit about the WWE is just complete and total insanity, and it must stop. Sting in WWE is different and better than Sting in TNA, period. There's a few key distinctions, a few major reasons why. First and foremost, perhaps stating the obvious, TNA is not freaking WWE. And I know this is a great matter of contention. WWE's been around all these years. TNA's only been around this period of time. WWE can get away with all this crap that TNA's not allowed to. WWE has all these excuses made for them. Well, you know what? When you're the top dog, that's the environment that you've created for yourself. So instead of sitting there as a company and as a fan base when it comes to TNA and making excuses about it and making pathetic, sad excuses about it, why not do something different? So why not do something to positively affect change to help change that narrative? But the fact of the matter is TNA is not WWE. There is a difference, a big, distinct difference. When you think about it this way, the best way I can put it is WWE doesn't aspire to be TNA or anybody else in the wrestling, or sports entertainment business. WWE aspires to be WWE. And the fact of the matter remains, I don't give a damn what other company you were talking about. An indisputable fact is that TNA and everyone else wants to be like the WWE. In particular, they want to have the WWE's bank account. Because newsflash to those of you that are fans that don't believe this crap, ultimately professional wrestling is just like anything else. It is a business. And as a business, your number one objective is not putting on a fucking 5-star match. Your number one objective is bringing home cheese. It's getting dollars in that bank account, putting money in the old hashtag ass pocket, if you will, period. WWE is not trying to mimic anybody else in the business. Everybody else in the business is trying to mimic and copy WWE and trying to aspire to be what the WWE is. Even on their worst day, they're far better than everybody else on their best day when it comes to an overall business standpoint, and that is a fact. The second major difference is the who, what, where, when, how, and why TNA used Sting. Basically, they pushed a guy in his 50s at the top of the card, including multiple world title reigns, for the purpose of cheap ratings pops and an attempt to have some semblance of relevance that frankly wasn't there and still doesn't exist at the expense of developing future young talents that ultimately accomplished very little and has helped in part contribute to where TNA is today. It's not just that Sting was in TNA, but it was the fact that it was Sting and what they used him for, where they used him, when they used him, for how long they used him, and why they used him. All of these things matter. And this is a huge distinction that so often gets left out. Whereas in the WWE, somebody like Sting is used as a special attraction. That limited usage of him helps keep that big feel, keeps that feeling of him being a special attraction. Also, the lack of legends in WWE being consistently utilized on television in a week in, week out basis also helps to keep that big feel and that special attraction. Whereas in TNA, it was Sting, and then here's Angle, and here's Bully Ray, and here's Flair, and here's Hogan. And all of them are being utilized all over the place all the damn time, every single week on television and on pay-per-views. WWE's not going to do that with the Sting, just like they haven't done it with Hogan, or Flair, or Foley, or so on or so forth. The big distinction is WWE uses these guys in bits and pieces and in spurts, but they don't overuse them like a TNA did. And let's be perfectly realistic here. Looking at the current fan base of the WWE, frankly, Sting is new to many WWE fans. They've never really seen him. They've maybe heard about him. They watch some stuff on YouTube, but they don't know about him. They don't fucking get him. They don't understand who Sting is and what Sting's done over the years. So for them, as younger or newer WWE fans, Sting is kind of like an aura. It's a stink in a good way. And they're like, oh my God, this is new. This is cool. And a lot of the other fans, even some of the older fans that know who the hell Sting is, it's refreshing to them because they didn't even know Sting was in TNA. And in part, and this is news again to TNA fans because they live in a delusional world, a lot of wrestling fans and people in general don't know what the hell TNA is. I can't tell you how many times I have conversations with people about professional wrestling, and there are certain names that always come up. They will ask me about Hogan. They will ask me about Austin. They'll ask me about Flair. They'll ask me about the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. And another name that will always come up, besides maybe Kevin Nash, is Sting. People will always ask me, man, I used to watch him on TBS every Saturday night. What happened to Sting? Where's Sting? And I would say, hey, he's still wrestling. They said, what do you mean? He's like in his 50s. I said, well, yeah, he's still wrestling in TNA. TNA, what's that? Never heard of it. Didn't even know Sting was still around. Thought he's been gone for a decade. So there's so many people, because of TNA's failures over the years, that don't even know TNA existed. So for a lot of people, they thought Sting was gone, retired, never to be seen again. They haven't seen him in close to a decade and a half. So this is all, again, new and exciting for many fans on several different levels and spectrums. And most importantly of all, we have to keep the historical perspective in mind here. Sting was a major star before TNA ever existed. Sting was a major star, frankly, at the very, very beginnings of WCW. This damn guy's been a top star in the business since the 1980s. Back when I was a damn kid. And you also have to factor in all of these years of wondering about whether Sting would ever go to WWE and what would happen if Sting ever went to WWE. I can think about this going back to like 1990. You know, I'm thinking about who would win Hogan Warrior at WrestleMania 6. Another question I had in my mind as a young wrestling fan is what happened if Sting would wrestle Hulk Hogan? And even more awesome in thought to me at that time, who would win, Sting or the Ultimate Warrior? Now this is before I ever knew that these guys were old tag team partners, whatever the case might be. But these are the type of fantasy matchups, Sting and Taker, Sting and this guy, Sting and that guy, that we think about over the years. You know, we've been wondering what would happen. What if? What if? And we've always had those what if questions. And this is one of the few guys that never worked with Vince. And in part, that's always been the appeal of Sting to myself and a lot of other individuals, was that he was able to become an icon, become a big, huge star, known around the world, and he didn't have to go to the Titan Tower machine in order to do so. There's a lot of admirable things about Sting when it comes to that. But there's still that wonder of what would happen if he went to work for Vince. What would happen if he went to the WWE? He's one of those few guys, frankly, that mattered, that never freaking did. And it's like a bucket list item for Sting, for Vince and the WWE, and for the fans too. Frankly, and I mean this sincerely, who gives a shit if Sting was in TNA? TNA is a redheaded stepchild of American professional wrestling. That is a fact. TNA is completely and totally irrelevant compared to the WWE. That is also an indisputable fact. People have never sat there and said, well, what if Sting went to TNA and wrestled this guy, or wrestled that guy, and wrestled that guy? No, it was always what would happen if Sting went to the WWE. So again, there are major significant differences. And yes, that is why people, when it comes to Sting and TNA, based off of who TNA is, who TNA has been, and what the WWE is, and what the WWE has been, and what they still represent, how Sting was utilized in the TNA, compared to how Sting will be utilized in the WWE, and the history involving Sting and the WWE makes a big distinct difference. Ultimately, again, I will emphasize. So this way, the people that want to use this as their lame-ass bullshit talking point can hopefully learn to cut this madness out. Because when you use it, you sound ridiculous. You sound like a moron, period. Sting is different and better in WWE than TNA. And I defy you to come up with any logical reasons as to why that's not the case. Period.